And it's been interesting to see, as you alluded to earlier, just how he responded to that demotion from Red Bull. That tells you a lot about a person's competitive spirit as to how they can deal with that kind of adversity where, the team's basically saying you're not getting it done. We don't have confidence in you to get it done. And it's a mid-season demotion with the whole world watching it happen.
Yeah.
And he responds.
Mentally tough. I mean, you got to be to recover from this the way he has. And it's two sides of the same coin in that you are demoted in front of the world in a very high-pressure job and a very high-pressure situation, where you're risking your life in some ways, and you've just sort of been thrown to the trash bin. Now, a lot of drivers, they really literally do get thrown out of Formula One, and stuff like this happens. Luckily, he was able to bounce back to the junior team, and then he, like I said, took the opportunity and ran with it. But you got to be mentally tough. It's a huge blow.
Yeah.
On the same token, in order to get to where these guys they have got to be so arrogant, single-minded, and confident in their abilities that it's that contradiction of, in that moment when he's sacked, the contradiction of those two things, which are you going to choose? And it's clear what he chose, but I think he has described that as one of the most difficult times in his life, and but has just performed, incredibly at AlphaTauri. But it begs the question, what's next? What is it? What is this resurgent redemption? What does it get him in his Formula One career? There has been some talk recently that this may be his opportunity to step back into the Red Bull seat. Once Perez's time there is done, the next logical step would be to bump Gasly up, reward him for his performances. But if you're Gasly, is that what you want?
Why not?
He wants to be world champion, right?
Yeah. Well, you're going to be second fiddle.
Do you think that anyone is going to get into the second seat at Red Bull and beat Max Verstappen?
Right.
For one thing, Max Verstappen is clearly a once-in-a-generation talent. When I say that, Hamilton's a once-in-a-generation talent. There can be more once-in-a-generation talents in a generation, and there usually are. But that's the level. You get to a certain level where you just sort of can't get any better. I mean, you can only get 100% of the car's physical ability, and some people seem to be able to do that on a consistent basis, Hamilton obviously being one of them. And Verstappen another. How are you going to step in there and beat someone of that talent? But on top of that, that car, that team, it's designed and built around Verstappen. So it seems like Gasly stepping up is just conceding, I'm going to have the career that Bottas has had. I'm going to have a good number 2 career. Now, he's a race winner in F1. So,
That's right.
I don't see stepping back up to the Red Bull seat as necessarily being that advantageous for Gasly. And Verstappen, I believe they just signed a new contract and committed themselves to each other for another, 4 or 5, even possibly even longer.
Right. So if he wants to be champion, he's got to go to a
probably has to go
contending team, but where they will
somewhere else. Yeah.
Invest in him with the car,
or just so happens that they've got a seat and the other guy in the other seat is beatable,
right.
and hasn't been there forever. So it seems like it's a difficult road for Gasly there. So what are his other options? How else is he going to become world champion? Well, he continues to make his name here. He can hope that AlphaTauri can become a championship contender.
Right.
But as we've talked about, there's a number of reasons why that's probably pretty unlikely. Down to it's hard to move up from the midfield, but
there's
also
still the junior circuit or a junior team.
There's
to
still
Red
the
Bull
junior
or
team,
sister team, junior sister team.
So that seems somewhat unlikely as well to get him to be world champion. So then you've got somewhere else. He continues to put in the results this year, next year, and then he finds a team that has a seat and looks like they can maybe take the next step up, or they're already there. Now, they're already there. Right now, we've got Red Bull, Mercedes, maybe Ferrari this year.
Yep.
McLaren looks like one of those teams that might need another year or two, but might get there.
Yep.
Ferrari looks like they might have done that this year. We'll see. Anyway, let's say you've got Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari. Well, Red Bull's out because we already talked about that, right? Yep. Ferrari, Leclerc's there for at least another 2 or 3 years contract. Saints there. Ferrari continually talks about how great of a driver pairing that is.
Yeah.
So that's not changing. Maybe Hamilton will retire.
Right.
Right now, that's the only seat in another team that's a championship contender.
Yeah.
Hamilton having to retire.
Russell's just slipping in. He's going to be there a while. Yeah.
So Gasly's route to a world championship is pretty unlikely at this point.
Yeah,
even though he is showing himself to be top notch when the car can suit him. Clearly the Red Bull didn't suit him, and he wasn't able to adapt. But again, the whole Verstappen thing. Interesting, and obviously proving to be a great talent in Formula One, or at least in my opinion. But we probably will never see him world champion. There's a good chance we'll never see him win another race, unless it's another kind of flukish win like this, where there's conditions help a team lower down the grid get a victory.
Yeah.
So Gasly's route to the world championship seems fairly unlikely, and we may not even see him get another victory. But he could also really show himself again this year, and maybe next year or the year after. Maybe that Mercedes seat opens up.
Maybe things change.
Or maybe McLaren, continues to rise up, and Ricciardo's now been there 3 or 4 years, contract's up. Obviously, I think Norris is going to be there longer than that, but Ricciardo's seat could open up.
Yep.
And
there's some possibilities.
I would like to see Gasly find that McLaren or other team in the next couple years that has become a contending team, has a seat for him. We can see what he can do over, for a championship. But honestly, it's musical chairs, and I don't see that as that likely to happen.
Yeah.